Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 48, the week of June 14th, 2024. My name is Drew Koenig. With me, as always, my co-host, Mads Sassy. Mads, how we doing?
I'm doing good. I'm getting ready to go back home to New Jersey. Not going to be in Kansas for longer than 24 more hours. We're good.
Nice.
I can only handle so much of strictly conservative Kansas.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
I was out and about at Walmart today wearing my pronouns doctor t-shirt, and I got so many people staring at me like I was an alien with 3 heads or something. And I'm just like, I looked down at my shirt and I was like, oh, it's probably my shirt. Because how dare I wear anything that says anything about pronouns?
Let's talk about some news. Big thing that I want to talk about is a report that came out earlier today that Tubi had more viewership than Max, Peacock, Paramount Plus, and Disney, I think. Which is
That doesn't surprise me.
so deeply funny to me, personally. That is so fantastic.
Yeah, I find it hilarious. I find it hilarious, but also, like, it doesn't surprise me at all because of so much hatred that people have for certain streaming services at this point. It doesn't surprise me that the one that came along that has a lot of free content on it, and not to mention Tubi has a lot of good queer indie films, and it's like, yes, I will go watch your content, Tubi.
I hope that this trend continues until like the Winona Earp movie comes out, which is set to premiere on Tubi later this year, and just kind of go, hey, everybody watch this more than anything else on streaming.
Yeah,
suck it.
I get that. A lot of people, I've noticed a lot of people have also been going towards Freevee as well, which does air through Prime sometimes too. But like, I know of friends that really just go to the Freevee app and they're like, I'm gonna watch some stuff on Freevee because I can and it's free and
Yeah.
the quality's not shit, you know. So it's like there's actually some good stuff on here. It's turning into a situation of people don't want to pay out their ass for streaming services, and so they're going to places that they can get stuff for inexpensive prices, and it happens to be things like Tubi and Freevee and Pluto TV. Like it's a very interesting trend.
Yeah, I think we discounted for a long time how enjoyable it is to just watch something and not know exactly what the thing you're gonna watch is. Like the sensation of just watching TV and like just being like, oh, Jurassic Park's on. Yeah, I can watch that. I can watch Jurassic Park for half an hour.
Right. Yep.
Just the sheer randomization of like being on a Saturday afternoon and just being like, yeah, I can watch this. Tubi's kind of latching onto, and Pluto and Freevee.
I really like Pluto TV because they have a Degrassi channel, and I like going to it to be like, okay, what season am I going to end up on today?
Oh yeah,
like because you never know because they play it constantly. So like you could end up tuning in at season 10 one day, and the next day it's back to season 1. You know,
right.
So it's like this is a fun adventure.
Right, totally. I do that same thing with like they have a Star Trek: The Next Generation channel and a Stargate SG-1, and it'll just be like, yeah, I got some time to kill. what episode?
Let's see
where are we at here?
And I will say Peacock has channels too, and I feel like people don't talk about it, but Peacock is probably one of the superior streaming services that you pay for because they have channels that have the same thing. So like there's a Dateline channel, there's a true crime channel, there's a classic sitcom channel. Like you don't know what you're going to turn on when you turn on these channels, but those channels are there.
Yeah, and there's a Survivor channel and a Big Brother channel and other like weird reality channels like that I think are really good.
Right. So I hope that other streaming services will realize that this is a thing, but I don't see it happening for other services. So I think those ones that are rooted in like, because Peacock's rooted in network television because it's based off NBC. So they know, okay, NBC knows, okay, people still watch network television. Let's do some channels.
Right.
And then there's, obviously Tubi, Freevee, and Pluto.
So Cartoon Network announced some news about their upcoming slate. They're going to be rebooting regular show for one, with a new spin and a new cast. There's the Adventure Time stuff, which is obviously the big takeaway. But there was one other thing that I can't remember that they said they were going to do.
I'm looking it up.
It was the I think they were doing the House for Imaginary Creatures or whatever it was.
Yes. So Foster's Home for
yes, thank you.
Imaginary Friends gets like a new update, right?
Yes, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, a preschool targeted reboot of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Okay. Funny enough, actually skews a little younger than the original Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yeah, it's called Foster's Fun Time for Imaginary Friends.
Okay.
So they're going younger than the original series, which is interesting. I'd be very intrigued to see if the quality of storytelling remains similar. Because I loved Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends when I was younger. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it being preschool targeted.
Yeah, because Foster's aimed at a roughly 12 to 13-year-old range.
6 to 11. Yeah, it says.
Well, I mean, for the original one.
No, that's what I'm saying. The original, it was 6 to 11 was their demographic.
Right, but
they were aiming
I feel like it always skewed a little preteen going into teenager.
Yeah, probably, but I'm just saying that's what this article says was their original demographic was 6 to 11, which I'm like, I was more 11, 12 when it was out.
I don't believe that. I just simply don't believe that.
You're like, no.
No.
To be fair, though, I was also watching Blue's Clues when I was way older than their demographic, so it could be that was their demographic and just the older kids latched onto it.
I mean, it's fair, but I would not say it was younger than 9, But anyway, but the main thing coming out of this, like I said, is the Adventure Time news.
Yes.
Which is coming in 3...
have Adventure Time side quests.
Yeah, well, so they announced 3 things for Adventure Time. The first is that they are doing an Adventure Time movie, bringing back Rebecca Sugar, who created Steven Universe and worked on a bunch of Adventure Time.
Mm-hmm. Patrick McHale, Adam Muto.
Yeah, Patrick McHale, who also worked on Adventure Time, but co-created Over the Garden Wall.
Oh, nice.
And Adam Muto, who was the showrunner for Adventure Time. If Rebecca Sugar is coming back, this is going to be designed to ruin everyone's life. I just want to be on the record as saying that right now.
And is it bad that the other project that they announced for Adventure Time is Heyo Bimo, which is for preschoolers, but I really want to watch it?
Oh, that's going to be great.
It's going to be so good.
It's going to be so good. The interesting thing here for me is side quests, which is...
Yes.
Just feels like doing standalone Adventure Time episodes again. Just doing more classic Adventure Time.
It's literally what the blurb says. In standalone episodes, our heroes take on classic Adventure Time villains like the Ice King and reconnect with standout side characters from the original series. It's basically just doing the original series.
That's so interesting. I also think it's interesting that there's no news about Fiona and Cake.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they're gonna do.
I felt like the first season was well received.
It was very well received. I feel, but it also could have been self-contained. So
yeah,
no news on affirmative or negative on whether they're gonna do another season of that. I think it's interesting.
The other thing that Cartoon Network announced, which I am intrigued by because I grew up watching Scooby Doo, is Go Go Mystery Machine. And it's while visiting Japan on an ultimate foodie adventure, Shaggy and Scooby Doo unwittingly unleash hundreds of mischievous mythical monsters that are now causing trouble all over the country. I'm like really intrigued by this because it's focusing on Shaggy and Scooby being obnoxiously themselves, and they're my favorite characters. So I'm like, this will be fun.
Yeah, it feels very similar to like what they did with Scooby Doo in like the '90s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with like there was one series that was just like Shaggy and Scooby and Scrappy, I think. Just
Yeah,
like doing weird,
Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy Doo.
yeah, doing like weird like supernatural shenanigans and like cases apart from like Mystery Inc. And then like some
Mm-hmm.
of like the weirder like standalone Shaggy and Scooby Doo like movies, Dracula one or the oh what was it like the witches one. So
Mm-hmm.
this has that feel. This is the feeling of like
Yes, and I'm here for it.
that. Well, this is also interesting, like in contrast of like all the other Scooby Doo stuff that's like either in production or actively happening right now. Because you have like Velma on Max, and you have Netflix trying to do its own take on Scooby Doo, which I think just fell through actually. And then there was just a Scooby Doo movie a couple years ago, so it felt very interesting how we're all converging on like the same thing. So let's move on to the goat. The GOAT is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Mads nominate a best TV character or episode of all time and pit them against each other. Since it is June, Pride Month, we will be presenting some Pride themed characters and episodes. Last week, we did our redemption round where I brought back Lexa from The 100, and Mads, you nominated Emmett from Queer as Folk. This is a bit of an abnormal pick for me, in the sense that I have not actually watched the thing that I'm about to talk about. But someone, I feel that someone should make this pick. My pick for this week is Santana Lopez from Glee. Whether or not anyone thinks that she is qualifies as the best, I still feel like she should.
She
Yeah,
does.
she should still be nominated.
She's an
Yeah,
icon.
the impact that she had on queer television cannot be understated. But since I haven't watched it and I have no real experience with Glee, I shall instead be reading from a piece out of Teen Vogue from a couple years back, talking about Santana and her importance. So the words I'm about to say are not mine, but I do co-sign. Even in Glee's first season, without much to do but be cheerleader sidekick to Diana Agron's character, Naya's charisma and her role as Santana was undeniable. For so many reasons, Santana felt like family. I've always been drawn to the bitchy women, the ones who have devastating comebacks for anyone who looks at them askance. I delighted every time Santana effortlessly put Rachel Berry in her place, or whenever she called out Will Schuester for being the living worst. Naya Rivera was mixed, black, and Puerto Rican, and that's all. The author of this was also mixed, black, and white. She seemed so sure of herself, so other people like this could be too. When the show committed to her coming out story, I and many others were still years away from committing to our own sexuality, but we all knew that it mattered. I knew she mattered, even if I couldn't say why. We're finally starting to see more queer women of color on TV now, but back then, there was so little for anyone who wasn't white and straight to grasp onto. Santana Lopez was a gift to queer people of color because we finally got to see ourselves on screen, and it opened up the possibility that we could not only exist, but thrive. I love that Santana was a queer woman of color. But I love that she was a bitch even more. The thing about playing a bitch on TV is that it is a white woman's game. When black and brown women do it, it is the entirety of their character. They are rarely allowed to be well rounded, complicated people. We don't see what else they are, just that they are sure of themselves and quick of a joke. But the beauty of Santana was how unsure of herself she was, even though her biting wit made us all think that she was confident. Her dripping disdain for everyone around her was a wall she built to keep herself safe, to keep everyone out, to remain unknowable by everyone, but especially to remain unknowable to herself. Like, I felt my anger melt away after coming out. Santana's defensive, reactionary bitchiness was something many queer people can understand. As Nia was promoted to series regular, audiences got to see past that veneer bit by bit, and Santana became one of the most compelling characters on the show. She was incredibly loyal and deeply observant. She always knew what her fellow Glee Club members were thinking and feeling, often before they did. We got to watch as Santana learned to accept her feelings for Brittany, and how she learned how to accept other people and let them in. That is my pitch for the goat.
Nice. I will wholeheartedly stand behind Santana because she is my favorite character from Glee. And yes, I know because I watched Glee during lockdown with my friend because we thought it'd be a fun idea. All right, so my pick for this week. Originally, I was going to go with an episode, but I decided like yesterday that I was like, no, I'm actually going to pick a queer character that I absolutely adore on a show that wasn't centered in queerness, but that had a lot of queerness to it. Um, and so, yeah, I'm going to go with Oliver Hampton um, from How to Get Away with Murder. Um, he's played by Conrad Ricamora. And he starts off the show just being this young hacker that they hire, well, not really hire, they manipulate into getting him to give them information on a case that they're working on. And in order to get him to do what they ask, the Annalise Keating's underling named Connor decides to have sex with Oliver and use that as a tool to manipulate Oliver to do what he needs. But throughout the series, Oliver is really their guiding light, their moral compass, because he's not part of the inner circle, so to speak. He is on the outside looking in as Connor's boyfriend, Connor's ex, and then Connor's husband. As the series goes on, like him and Connor go through a roller coaster of a relationship. But he is just a steady hand in a series of characters that are off their freaking rockers. They're all centered on lying and getting away with doing really illegal things, hence the title of the show. But he is there and he sees everything that happens, and at first he's very resistant to helping because he's like, I'm not that kind of person, you're not going to drag me down with you. But the more he falls in love with Connor and the more he sees the goodness in Connor, and that Connor's just kind of pushed into this situation by a series of circumstantial, moments, he starts to be more open to helping the group, and being their person on the inside sometimes with the technological stuff. But his heart and his steadiness is what made me really drawn to him throughout the series. And getting to see him kind of alter his steadfast beliefs because he's fallen in love with someone who's morally ambiguous, is very, very interesting. And one of my favorite scenes with Oliver and Connor comes when Connor comes to him coming off of a high and telling him that he, potentially exposed him to HIV and like all these things. And like Oliver could have easily like pushed Connor out of his apartment and said, get the fuck out of my life. But instead, he's like, let me help you. I see that you're falling apart because of this thing that your professor has pushed you into. Let me help you. Let me be there for you. And it's just that constant loyalty that he has to the people he cares about that I really, really admire. And I wish there were more queer characters like him in shows like How to Get Away with Murder and intense dramas like that. So my pick for this week is Oliver Hampton from How to Get Away with Murder.
Nice.
Also a character of color. So there we go.
There we go. So you can find a poll for this up on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Tumblr. And you'll have 2 days to vote once it goes live. And be sure to like and share it on all of your platforms. And without anything else, let's move on into the main part of our show.
Slow dance with you. I just wanna slow dance with you. I know all the other boys are tough and smooth, and I got the blues. I wanna slow dance with you.
So our first show for this week, we are continuing our rewatch of Adventure Time, and we are getting ever close to the end with Season 10, Episode 4, Bonnibel, Bubblegum, Episode 5, 17, and Episode 7, Marcy and Hunson. So we have a lot of, not so much lore, but a lot of Bubblegum backstory being dropped in these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
None more so than Bonnibel Bubblegum. So we now know who the uncle is.
Yes. I don't remember him being mentioned prior to this episode. So, like, maybe I just forgot.
So, Uncle Gumball has been mentioned a few times throughout the show. Bubblegum mentions that the cabin she was staying in was built by Gumball.
Oh,
Like,
right.
The outdoor clock in Stakes was her Uncle Gumball's. And so there's been a few mentions to him over the years, but this is the first time we are for real seeing him. But he has been kind of lurking on the outskirts for many years.
Yes.
So what did you think of the revelations of how Bubblegum basically started her kingdom and created her family?
I found it interesting that, like, after making these 3 family members, like, she doesn't seem too keen on, like, making other things. Like, she does make a fish, but she realizes she does it because she's like, well, I've made this lake and now I need to convince my uncle that it's a good thing, not a bad thing, because he's complaining about it. So, like, we don't really see the scientific-y, like, experimenter version of her that we see throughout the series. Like, this is her. Yes, she did some scientific experimentation in order to create her family members, but I feel like it's not all encompassing yet. Like, I feel like she's still very much, I want to enjoy the world. I want to see what we can make from the worlds, make with the world. Like, she's just trying to enjoy life and not be lonely. And then she builds these people that turn into assholes.
Right. Well, and it is the messed up thing of this episode that you see that she gets the idea for the candy kingdom and the candy people from her uncle.
Yep.
From this guy who betrayed her. So then it's a question of like, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean about Bubblegum? Is this like a tribute to her uncle and like what she feels like he could have been, or what?
I wonder if it was just a way for her because, after the end result of this episode is that she gets the idea for the candy people, but also, like, her aunt, her uncle, and her cousin are all candy people. And so now I wonder if it was just more of a way to, like, hide what had happened, but also, like, to make sure that they don't become upset and possibly cause more problems. I don't know, but, like, I get maybe the idea that her intentions were good. They just got out of hand. Because I don't really see it as maybe a tribute to her uncle, because I feel like she doesn't like her uncle at all.
No.
Especially after the way he treated her.
No, but he does have ideas of like a capitalist utopia, or not even a utopia, but like a
Mm-hmm.
very capitalist metropolis,
Mm-hmm.
that she does implement into her vision of the Candy Kingdom. But I do wonder if her desire to create candy people after this was both to kind of, as you said, like kind of hide the fact that she turned her family into candy people, but also I think we can kind of surmise that after a while she got lonely. I think you can also like imagine that like she thinks that her family in these forms would also be lonely, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like this weird act of kindness. But it's also funny seeing who like cousin Chicle and Aunt Lolly turn into, because these are characters that have been around since the beginning.
Yeah, the cookie person and
Yeah, Crunchy
the
and
pinata.
yeah, Crunchy and well, now I'm blanking on what the pinata's name is, but like the pinata around since like the very first episode. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's these people that have always, again, people that have been lurking on the sidelines for a while, and we've seen a lot with Crunchy over the years.
And all this time he's been the pretentious asshole cousin. And it's interesting that the thing that brought them back was what's her name
Oh, LSP, yeah, her resetting,
changing, everything back to normal, quote unquote.
which like we could have. I mean, we didn't know to predict this, but we could have predicted that after we saw like what happened with Jake. That
Yep.
there were like some base fundamental things that were altered in that reset. To go back to what I was saying about like who they turned into, before I lose this thought entirely. When I think about it, it's less surprising that like Aunt Lolly and Cousin Chicle turned into like these characters that we know, and it's more surprising that Uncle Gumball doesn't really.
Yeah.
Um, like I can remember one instance where I see his fruit bowl, his fruit punch bowl.
His punch.
Yeah,
His punch.
and that's really it. I'm more surprised that they didn't decide it would be a character like Cinnamon Bun. I was surprised that it wasn't like a character that we had spent that much time with, to really like drive that to push that knife in, because you have that a little bit with Crunchy, where it's like, oh, I've spent a lot of time with Crunchy. Like we've seen Crunchy do a lot of stuff over the years, and now he's this asshole. But I can also see why they couldn't do a character like Cinnamon Bun, who had progressively become more lucid over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that within like the narrative framework of like the Dum Dum liquid or the Dum Dum serum. That would kind of like betray that conceit. That would have hurt so much if it was Cinnamon Bun. Also, I do want to talk about uh, Finn and Jake and Marceline and Bubblegum just hanging out at a pool together.
Yes.
Because I forget where I saw this on Twitter, but like it would be like if just like four of the biggest celebrities around were just seen hanging out together. Like
Right.
that's who these people are. You have two of the most famous adventurers around right now, a megastar rock star, and a princess.
Right.
It would be like if Meghan Markle hung out with like Timothy Chalamet and uh, Ariana Grande, and like,
Listen, it could happen.
but just like the sheer,
Wouldn't that be fun?
yeah, just the sheer casualness of that, and I think that every time they hang out, just the four of them, or
Mm-hmm.
five of them if you count BMO. But let's move on to 17, which, if you want to talk about a gut punch of an episode, just kind of deeply gutting, to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
Although, Finn, we have to talk about your intelligence level because
He's like, I'm fine. I'm 17. And I was like, sir, that's not how this works.
you see a big green guy
Yeah.
come smashing through, and you don't think, hey, could this have any relation to the green guy that I just killed? Could these two things be related at all? Finn, like my bud, my guy, my brother in Christ. We gotta.
You are so dumb, sir.
You just.
I adore him, but my God, he's stupid.
He's a stupid boy.
And he's like this thing that he literally chopped the head off of and it put it back on its body. He's like, yes, that sounds like a perfect person to play a series of games with. Like, what? Finn,
Yeah.
you stupid idiot.
It's,
like, what?
you know what? We talked a lot about the way that Adventure Time very accurately portrays a teenage boy, and there's
It's
nothing
true.
more teenage boy than being 17 and going, I know everything there is to know. I have it figured out. Like the rank arrogance.
That's true. That's true. I think that's what frustrates me so much is because I'm so far removed from my teenage years that I'm just like, "Oh my god, you're such an idiot." But like I bet you if I'd watched this like even 10 years ago, I would have been like, "I get that. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
I used to be that."
That's a teenage boy. That is just the purest depiction of a teenage boy. I do also really appreciate this episode for like putting a real clear line in the sand of like where we are on a timeline. The show started and Finn was 11. The show's ending now and he's 17. I have a real clear grasp of where we've been, where we are. It's very good. I also really like Huntress Wizard being back.
Yes, and how she's trying so hard to defend Finn. I'm just like, you're cute. You have such a big crush on him.
You have such a big crush. They are so relationships. They are just such in a relationship. Like
so good. Also, I'm just like, I love where PB's like, I have to question, like with the first game, PB's like, I have to question whether or not that was real. And Huntress Wizard's like, no, it wasn't. I saw it with my vision. And then like it shows with the vision, like what she saw. And it's just like, that's hilarious.
Also, you are the coolest person. Just
absolutely night vision, like that's basically what she has. She's like got night vision and it's just like, I love this.
It's so good. And I love the only reason that like Gumball and Fern's plan doesn't work is because Marceline is a very scary vampire.
Yes.
Which like that is such a real reaction. Like I had this whole plan. She's super scary, so I'm leaving.
It shows the immaturity of them. It really does. Cause like it's funny comparing it to Finn, who's like finds no fear whatsoever in Marceline.
Yeah.
But then you've got these guys that have this big plot to overthrow the whole Candy Kingdom and get their revenge on PB and take out Finn, and they cannot handle a vampire girl.
No. And like you all could probably take her.
You could.
Also, I kind of have to dispute. Gumball has been back in the world for like a month and already has like more advanced technology than Bubblegum after like hundreds of years of Bubblegum being around and tinkering. I kind of have to call shenanigans on that.
Maybe he found a secret book from some other character that has technology information.
Maybe.
He found the Ice King's journal. I'm calling bullshit. I'm just pulling bullshit out of my ass. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. So, speaking of the Ice King, what a horrifying last shot to leave us on of Ice King coming out of that cake. Just.
And the way Finn just stares and he's just like, okay.
It's like, this is hell. He killed me. I've done and gone to hell.
I was just like, Ice King, put those legs away, please.
So let's move forward to Marcy and Hunson, which just so good. I love that. Like, Hunson Aberdeer is such a good foil.
He is. And I appreciate that this time, like, he couldn't do what he normally does because they have that stipulation that Peppermint Butler put on him by putting the chains around his wrists, right? So, like, he can't go out and wreak havoc, but yet he still manages to wreak havoc on his daughter's concert in his own obnoxious way.
Right. Like, he mentions in one episode that we didn't watch that he's filled with chaotic neutral energy.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, it was chaotic evil, and that is such a accurate just
description.
Yeah, that is so very much him. Just absolutely chaotic evil.
But I love that the like chaos that he reigns on the concert was initially just him being a good father. Him being a good father who's proud of his daughter. Like,
not even necessarily being a good father. It's just being an obnoxious father, right? It's just being that father, you know?
I don't know. I still see that as kind of a good father because I feel like fathers that show up for their kids, like as obnoxious as they can be, like I still see that as a good thing. So like, it's on the line, the goodness line, I think.
Right.
But it's just he's not even intending to disrupt the concert. He's literally just like, I'm proud of you and I want you to know that I'm proud of you. And she's just the typical teenage type where she's just like, oh, Dad, you're being so embarrassing. Just like, stop. Right. And it's so cute. And couple that with her power ballad for PB, because let's be real, that's who that song was for.
Right.
It was just all so good. Just so good.
Right. Well, and to bring up the power ballad, "Slow Dance with You" is a kind of sequel to the musical episode, the musical, where this is a song that was written by an actual singer.
Yep.
Adapted here was written by a Washington D.C. based musician named Babeo Baggins.
Nice.
And used here by Olivia Olson, who does a very good rendition of this, and it's very sweet and just on the line of melancholy, in a way that like Marceline does really well. Yeah. It is a kind of beautiful and haunting song.
Absolutely, I love it.
Which 100% sung for Bubblegum. Just 100%. It kind of makes you wonder what Marceline is trying to say about her relationship with Bubblegum.
So good. And of course, cousin Chicle has to come along and cause chaos of his own. And it's just like, it makes you, like, compared to chaos that other characters can bring down upon, the main characters, he does a really bad job. He literally just kind of just incites a riot with a group of ghosts, but like that does nothing. like it doesn't really go anywhere. Like, yes, they throw a few punches here and there, but Finn's easily able to overcome them.
Right.
So it's like, you didn't try very hard, sir.
Cousin Chicle is very stupid.
He's so dumb.
And Finn's right, he does have a very stupid laugh. But also, there is that mention, because this is kind of lore that I don't think we've experienced on the show, but it was mentioned like in one episode, that like vampires can't fight ghosts. So like that methodology like is pretty sound. Like if you're gonna have someone go after Marceline,
oh yeah, I guess that's true.
it would be ghosts. Like ghosts are the best choice for that.
Yeah, but the problem is he didn't think it through in terms of who else is going to be there that could potentially thwart this attempt.
Right. And also, I don't believe that Chicle would know that. Like, I don't think he would know about the weakness and, like, power structure.
Oh, yeah. He's not someone that would, like, not to bring up this series, but he's kind of like, Voldemort doesn't deem certain life forms, so to speak, important. So therefore he doesn't read up on the lore of it. So, like, he doesn't realize that, like, their magic works differently, right? So, like, the same thing happens with Chica. He does not care about anything but himself. So he's not going to look up various lores to find out what the best solution is for his problem.
No.
But a great series of episodes this week. I really enjoyed them.
Yes. And next week's is going to be similarly great. I think it's a really good arc. Let's continue on to our next show. Dimension 20, The Unsleeping City, Episode 2, Mutant Santa Melee. This is such a good battle episode.
It is, and I really liked their callback to Fantasy High Season 1, where they're like, oh, you made sure these looked creepy so we couldn't call them cuties. Santa cuties. No, they're not cute in the slightest. It was so good. Like, a lot of times I find with battle episodes, and this is just a me and my attention span kind of thing, where I tend to find that, like, generally about half hour in, I'm like clicking the button to show the timeline again of how much is left on the episode, just to be like, oh, it's only been 30 minutes, whatever. But with this one, like, I got drawn in, and like, I looked at the time at one point and I was like, oh, I only have 20 minutes left. What? Like, this has been going on for an hour? What? Like, it was just so compelling and fun. And these characters are entertaining, and you're wanting to root for them to succeed at whatever they're trying. Whether it's Peter trying to give you some drugs.
Well, I think this has really helped by how kind of spaced out the board is, and how there is, like, if you go back to the Corn Cuties episode from season 1, there is so much more for them to do, because they have to deal with the Santa Claus, and they have to deal with the big gooey thing and the bad Santa, and so there's just more for, like, each one of them to do.
It's very similar to the party episode of Fantasy High.
Yes.
Remember? Where they had, like, multiple layers to the battlefield. They had multiple things going on, and each person had to try and figure out their section before they could go and help the other people.
Yeah. Whereas, like, in contrast, there with, like, the Corn Cuties, it was just the Corn Cuties and then the big husk. And, like, that was, I think, that was a good starting place, but limiting. And here, there's more space, there's more opportunities for each character to do, like, their own particular thing. And I think, like, the roles they're making are just kind of smarter. Like, they're casting better spells.
Right. And then, like, if they don't get a role that they really like, they're better at knowing how to make it work to their advantage. Whereas, previously they were very new to this, and so they were making mistakes left and right, and Brennan had to keep bailing them out. But this time you could tell that Brennan was just enjoying watching them react to things.
Yeah.
And it felt like a really good, solid, well-oiled campaign.
And like they've done better at like, you know, step one of like creating better character sheets and character creation, where like now Allie's character doesn't have -3 to dexterity, which is an impossibly low score.
Right.
And the only reason Beardsley had that was because they didn't understand what that meant. Which is so funny. But now like Beardsley has like a better understanding of like how to make a character and how like what that should look like for an actual person that's meant to do things. So like now Pete can like have better traversal and like has a more fun skill set. Like wild magic is just such a versatile, like not versatile, but like such a utilitarian use, you know, where like it can just do anything.
I'm still not fully versed on like the different things that different types of characters can do, but I like learning as I go. But I do definitely know enough to know that like, okay, these guys have stepped up their game. They know how to play the game right. They know how to strategize better. They're better at communicating with each other to figure out the best moves. And it just is all around a lot more fun and engaging.
And a thing that I really enjoy, that I think this episode hammers home for me, is the emphasis that a lot of them have on like kind of cleric adjacent qualities to them, you know. So like Zach has like his character has like this kind of like indwelling goodness that kind of allows him to do things, you know. And Kingston has like this commitment to community and duty that like feeds his power. So like those two in particular, and then like Kugrash being more of like a monk, but still operating in like that same kind of vein of like I do things. This is why I exist, and these are the things that allow me to do things.
I also really enjoyed seeing them make moves that helped better their health. So like if they lost like a crap ton of points on the previous move, they do something with the next move to try and bring those points back up. And I appreciated that because I'm like, it's better than them all dying.
Right. Yes. It's such a investment to healing, which again is an improvement on Fantasy High, where like it was just Kristen who was healing people. But now you have like you have Kingston who's able to heal people, and Kugrash who's able to do some things.
That was the one that I noticed a lot. Was Kugrash was like able to better his health. Not sure how he did it. I probably have to go back and rewatch to be like really like nail down the logistics of it. But it was still cool to see because I'm like, okay, this is a lot more interesting because as funny as it is for these characters to die, that's not as engaging with regards to a battle episode.
Right.
We want to see them survive. We want to see them scrape out a win, whether they're falling apart at the end or not. You know, it's just a lot more fun and entertaining. And, you know, we get to the end of this episode and they're talking to Santa and he's like, well, I've lost my list. And you guys it could be the, you know, end of the world if we don't find it. And it's just like, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but you know that it's going to actually be a big deal in this campaign.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you're like, oh, Brennan mentioned a list. That means that's an important detail.
That's going to be an important detail. A nerd like Brennan, yep, that's going to be important.
Brennan says it, oh, it's important. You better write that down.
Another thing that I really liked was Shaban finding a way to do bardic inspiration that was and doing it differently than the way that Emily did it with Fig, like a different mechanic for giving people bardic inspiration. That's not just like, and I wink at you, and here but still being so true to the character. Hey, here's a compliment.
I really do like Siobhan's character this season, like this campaign. Like she's a lot of fun in that crazy, kooky old lady kind of way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, Siobhan is just having a blast. Like,
this is definitely a character that she is committed to and she cares about, and so you can see it in how excited she is with everything that this character does.
Yeah. It's one of those things that like you can see a lot with like Brennan, where they're doing a voice and they're enjoying doing the voice so much that it really feeds into like the way they're playing that character. There were some characters that Brennan had in like Fantasy High where you're like, oh, this character keeps popping up because Brennan loves doing that voice so much. Like Elwyn Abernat in Fantasy High. Like, Brennan just really enjoys doing that voice.
He's like, and here's Elwyn, and we're just like, oh, okay.
I love Elwyn Abernat, but that's kind of the same thing. That's kind of the same thing with Siobhan here, where Siobhan just is having the most fun doing that, like doing the affectation. The like Broadway affectation, the conversation she has with Santa about doing a Christmas album is just so good, and it, like that bit of it feels so lived in. The heightened nature of a Broadway person, like I just love it.
And honestly, the theater nerd in me loves it so much that there's a character in this campaign that is immersed in the theater, and so like I love that woman so much. She's just so obnoxious. And like I said last time, there's definitely theater people that I've met in my life that remind me of this character. So good job, Siobhan. You've picked a person that really exists. That could potentially exist. Like that's even better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's move on to our next show. Star Wars The Acolyte, which is now streaming on Disney Plus. The first 3 episodes of this are out. So you're reviewing this at Telltale TV.
Yes.
In as concise a way as you know how. What do you think of this?
I really like it. I like that we're exploring Star Wars lore that hasn't really ever been touched on yet. And I like so far that they give us a lot, but also not a lot at the same time, if that makes sense. Like it feels like, oh my gosh, you're giving us too much. And then you look back and think about what they've given, and you're like, yeah, but there's still so many unanswered questions going on. And I like that intrigue. We're 3 episodes in, and I'm still like trying to put together the pieces. And I think that's something that hasn't really happened a lot in the last few Star Wars series. So I'm inclined to believe that this show might be the strongest one yet, but with the exception of Mandalorian, like the first season. But you know what I mean?
Right.
I just love also the idea that we're centering on a female Jedi, and we're looking at one that has similar like personality traits to Anakin Skywalker, but like not, if that makes sense. And so like it's very interesting. And yeah, I'm just very, very intrigued by everything they're presenting so far.
So I think this is quite good. I think I like it a little less. I think it's quite good, but I think I'm just like a notch down from you. Not a lot down, just like a notch.
Is it the crazy lesbian witches? Is that what's turning you down?
Historically, lesbians are my takeaway. Are really my limiting force in my television.
Oh wait, no, I know what it is. I'm gonna go off the other arguments that people are having about it. It's that they chose an Asian guy who doesn't speak English to play a role where he speaks English, and they don't think he does a good job with it. That's what it is. I know it. Like, literally, I've been combing through like the vague arguments that the Star Wars fandom at large has been saying about the show, and I'm like, all your arguments are stupid.
Look,
and they're based on race.
Look, I said this on Twitter, goodbye. But at a certain point, we just have to accept that some Star Wars fans are just fucking stupid.
Yeah. Yep.
They're just nonsense. There is nothing you could do that would make these people happy. And they can't talk about a broken lore. 25 years ago, they already thought the lore was broken. So...
Here's the thing about the whole broken lore thing, is that, like, you're looking at it from a very generalized standpoint of, well, Anakin was supposed to be the chosen one, and he was created by the Force, and these girls were created by the Force, not thinking about that with the twins, the Force was used to create them, not the Force created them on its own. Like, that's the stark difference. Like, Anakin was literally put into being by the Force because they're like, we're going to need balance later on. We got to create something. These lesbian witches use dark magic, and the Force for them, it's the thread. And they're like, we created these children. Total difference, people. Like, come on.
Right.
Anyways, I don't really get into arguments with the Star Wars fandom because for that reason, like, it's like beating a dead horse. You're not going to get anywhere with any of these people. So I choose to just enjoy what I enjoy. And if you don't like it, oh, well, that sucks for you.
I'll say I like a lot of the performances here. I like Mandela Stenberg as our lead, doing a nice dual performance. I think they are just immensely cool throughout the show, and I dig their entire look, and I like that performance just in general. Yord is so deeply stupid, and I want him to die in a fire, but that is just me.
I like the actor. So the actor is Charlie Barnett.
Yes.
And he was an original actor on Chicago Fire way back in the day, which was like 12 years ago, but like that still feels like ages ago. And so like when he showed up on screen, A, I had forgotten that he had been listed as one of the people attached to this project. And B, I was like, sir, I love your hair. I enjoy your hair. But then you realize as the second episode progresses and we learn a little bit more about Yord, you're just like, this man has no thoughts in that brain.
He has nothing happening there.
But I will say, I do like that his lightsaber is yellow. Like, we're getting into more colorful lightsabers, and again, that's going to cause some problems in the fandom, I'm sure, because they're like, they're supposed to be only blue and green, but honestly, George Lucas has always said the color doesn't matter unless it's a Sith. They will always be black or red. Like, Sith will always have dark, scary color for their lightsabers, but the Jedi, they can use whatever color they want. There's no significance.
I've said this before. The lightsaber colors do not matter. Samuel L. Jackson had a purple lightsaber because he's fucking Samuel L. Jackson and he wanted one.
Exactly. I bet you Charlie Barnett was like, listen, can I have like a cool colored lightsaber? And they're like, what about yellow? And he's like, sounds good to me. Like, I guarantee that's probably what happened.
Listen. The only reason Luke's lightsaber was green in Return of the Jedi is because a blue one looked like shit backdropped against the desert. That's the only reason.
Because back in those days, they didn't have the technology to make any color look good with backgrounds.
No, that's the only reason. That's been on the record for a long time.
People need to just shut up. But no, yeah, Yord has like no thoughts in his head. I really do like Master Soul, but I also can't trust him. Like, there's something about him that's making me think there's something going on and I cannot trust you. And I think it has something to do with the fact that Torben just willingly committed suicide against May. So like there's something else going on with what happened on the planet, they came from. So like I don't trust Soul, but I like Soul. But I'm also like, sir, I would not be in a dark room alone with you.
No. But I like the action in this, very Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's very good. I like a lot of the kung fu in this, especially that first battle, the first fight scene. I don't think the third episode is very good for none of the reasons that other people are mad about it. It's just I don't like the execution.
That's fair. I rated it lower than the first 2 episodes. Like the first 2 episodes, I gave them pretty much close to 5 stars, not quite 5 stars, but like very close because again, they were really well done. I really enjoyed the storytelling. I enjoyed the acting. I enjoyed the fight scenes. Like it was really good. And then we get to the third episode, and I feel like they were like, okay, we need to give you backstory, and we only have 40 minutes to do it. We need to give you everything. And I'm like, no, you could have spread this out a little bit. Like it didn't need to all be in this one episode. And I felt like it was too much. We didn't have time to sit with some of the thinking and the thoughts involved. Like I still enjoyed it, but it was not my favorite of the 3 we've had so far.
No, and I don't think there's enough there. Right? Like
yeah.
I think a lot of the writing and dialogue is really sloppy. The performance of the 2 young girls is not very good. It does a lot of telling and not showing. When a lot of this hinges on decisions that Osha is making, and then May reacting to Osha's decisions, and I don't understand either. That's a problem. Like when I don't understand like why Osha is doing the things that she's doing, and like I don't know that a young girl who has been cut off for her entire life would feel this strongly.
Also, how I don't feel like she would know about the Jedi enough to be like, oh yes, they're better than what my family is. You know what I mean? Like it just it was interesting, but also seemed very out of place.
Yeah.
For her to have such a strong opinion. And the only thing I somewhat enjoyed about the execution of this episode was in those final moments where we see her and Soul walk past all the witches like dead on the ground, and I was like, okay, this is setting up the fact that there's no way they were killed by the explosion because they're too neatly on the ground. It looks very much like a pointed attack. And so like there's more to it than just a fire killed everybody, which again makes me not trust Soul. He just happened to be there at the right moment.
Right. Well, and then like the end of that last third, like hinging so strongly on May deciding to kill her sister, and you're like, I don't know how we got to this point. What do you mean I'll just kill you? Like, what?
What do you mean? And it honestly, so I had recently read a story about a pair of twins. This is like a real life story. Like a pair of twins, went their whole lives really only communicating with each other. And it was very cute when they were little, but as they got older, it got really like creepy and felt very like one was controlling the other. And so like I got that vibe from these 2 twins, was like a similar thing to this psychology study that I had read. And I was just like, you could have executed this better because this could have been so compelling. This could have been so compelling that maybe May has a stronger control over Osha, and Osha's trying to fight against it. Like it could have been that, but they didn't develop any of that. And so like we're left wondering what is causing this rift and difference of opinion between these 2 sisters that claim to be so close that like 2 becomes 1, and whatever the hell they say, and it's just like it's not adding up.
I will say that I really like their mothers. Jodie Turner-Smith is giving such a good performance, and just the sheer look of that character and that design is so good. just looks rad as hell.
Like, I'm sorry, I want to be a lesbian witch. Like, let me be a lesbian witch.
Yeah, and her other mother with like just like the Zabrak design, like it's just so good. Just really excellent character designs.
And I love that, like, it's clear that the markings on Mother, Jodie Turner Smith's character's face are obviously like tribal, and you get that vibe once you see May complete the ascension and she gets the tribal markings on her forehead. And I like that they're unique. Like, you would think that, like, sometimes in shows when they depict those kinds of things, the tribal markings look all the same. But with this one, it's based on, you can tell it's based on personality and who this person is as to what exactly shows up on their forehead. And so, like, I really like that. And it would have been interesting to see what would have shown up on OSHA's if the ascension had completed for her. The thing about this show that I, again, really like is the makeup team and the costuming. Like, they are phenomenal. They really are doing all the good work.
It's really good work. Although I will say that I had a visceral reaction to seeing the Trade Federation guys again. I had a moment of like, what the fuck are you all doing again?
I literally, no, but for real, because I watched the first episode and I'm like, the fuck are we doing with these guys? Get the fuck out of here, you assholes. Like, you guys are idiots. Like, what is going on here? And it honestly, and I'm also going to be dead honest, it took me a minute to recognize that they were a set of twins, because I was like watching it and I was like, oh, look, there's a fight sequence. And I literally was thinking that she had left that Trade Federation ship and gone to whatever planet that was, you know what I mean? And dressed in that manner and then gone back to the Trade Federation ship. Like, my brain, because crazier things have happened in Star Wars. So I was like not thinking that it was actual twins until she's like talking to Yord initially. And she's like, well, I've been here the whole time. And I'm just like, oh, wait, maybe it's two different people. And so then I was just like, oh, that's really cool. That was another one of their like showing instead of telling about the whole that later on Master Soul's telling the younglings, close your eyes can deceive you. And it's like, I totally get that teaching, because in the first few moments of this episode, my eyes were telling me it was the same girl. So far, it's a decent start. We'll see how it goes, because these shows, for some reason, tend to fizzle out after a few episodes.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say about this is that I appreciate that Manny Jacinto once again looks like he's playing a character that is from Jacksonville, Florida.
No, but for real. No, but for real.
Like, that man
he showed up and it was just like, oh, hello, sir.
That man is from Jacksonville. That is just Jason Mendoza in space. Let's move on to My Adventures with Superman, which is back with its second season.
Yeah, I've only watched the first 2 episodes.
Okay. 3 episodes are out right now. I've watched all 3. Or is that right? Or there might be...
I think there's 3.
There might be 4. But anyway.
Hold on.
I've watched all the episodes that have come out so far. Whether those are 3 or 4, I do not remember.
Nope. There are 4.
Okay, so I've watched all 4. So what do you think about this so far?
I had to remind myself of what happened at the end of last season. I enjoyed that Clark continues to be this guy that just wants to do the right thing, but is such a hapless idiot about it. It really does help distinguish him from his counterpart of Superman. And I did kind of love the whole I think this was in the second episode. It might have still been in the first episode. I don't remember. The 2 that I watched kind of ran together. But I liked the whole, she goes with Superman to find her father, And her father is like berating her for coming on this adventure with Superman and Alien instead of spending time with her boyfriend. And it's just like that whole tongue in cheek of, this is my boyfriend. You just don't realize it's my boyfriend. And it's funny because Lois almost says, but I am with Clark. And Clark's just like, and Superman's just like, no, don't say it. Just don't. No. And I also kind of enjoyed that they weren't all together. Like, I kind of like that it was Lois and Superman and doing their thing, off planet. And then you've got, why is my brain?
Jimmy.
Jimmy. You've got Jimmy trying to wrangle a group of hapless but energetic young writers.
Mm-hmm.
He's like tasked with this job of being a babysitter for young up and coming journalists, and it's so funny. I'm enjoying it so far. I mean, I really enjoyed last season. I feel like it's still building upon those elements from that season. We've still got these characters that are trying to create chaos with technology and things like that. And then we get introduced to Lex Luthor.
I'm so glad that the show isn't pretending that this isn't Lex Luthor anymore.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously Lex Luthor. We all knew it.
He's obviously Lex Luthor. And I just, when he introduced himself, I was like, oh, thank God. That's who your name is. That's who your name is. That's what your name is. Because I've been saying it in the back of my mind since we first met you.
Yeah. But God, he has the most intensely punchable face.
He does.
I think any Lex Luthor.
He shows up and I want to bully him, and I'm not a bullying person.
I'm like, you fucking nerd.
I am like, there's something about you I don't like. And then he introduces himself as Lex Luthor, and I'm like, that's why. You're such a pretentious little shit. Like, that's why. I mean, to be fair, I love-hate Lex Luthor. Like, I have a love-hate relationship with that character. But I was just like, this is why I automatically was just like, no. But I'm very interested to see more. I just ran out of time this week. Things were crazy. I watched these 2 episodes this morning, and I just did not have time to watch more.
The 3rd and 4th episodes are seeding in the idea of Supergirl and Kara coming into the picture.
Oh, right. I do remember Kal-El learning from his father that Kara is in existence on Earth. Sorry.
Yeah.
My brain kind of short-circuited for a second. And literally when they mentioned Kara, I was like, okay, but can we like get Melissa Benoist to voice Kara? Because that would be fantastic.
Fantastic.
Like, not likely to happen, but man, that would be great.
It would be so good. I will once again stay upon my nonsense and say, if we introduce Lex Luthor and we're introducing Supergirl, I'm not going to say it, but you all know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean. So let's move on to Thirst with Shay Mitchell, which is streaming on Max. So all 4 episodes are up, and that is the entirety of the series.
I'm going to be dead honest with you. I watched the first episode, was not impressed, and I didn't watch any more.
That is fair. So I will say that I enjoy this quite a bit. So Thirst follows Shay Mitchell as she goes through South American countries and learns a lot of like the drinking customs and like what those countries offer in terms of alcohol and drinking and kind of the culture that surrounds that. She isn't this, but she is kind of drawing to a certain extent from like the Anthony Bourdain style of like travel show, where it's like, I'm going to a place and I'm going to show the utmost like deference and respect while also like doing my thing and like trying to learn and engaging with the culture. And again, she's not at that level, but I think like she is inhabiting that kind of temperament. A lot of this is just Shay Mitchell, who is an extremely beautiful person in very nice fashion and clothing in very exotic and wonderful locales. So like that's 90% of the show, and like that can get you quite a bit. And she's also like rather charming. She doesn't. It is almost more charming and endearing how kind of not good without a script she is on camera.
Right.
So like that does kind of propel it. And the editing is constantly dragging her. So that's funny. Like one episode makes a point of counting every time that she says something is amazing, and it's like in the 200s.
She's when I watch a show like that, I want to feel like someone's telling me a story or educating me better. But like that first episode, she's literally complaining about all the guinea pigs, like all the time. I also am just like trying to figure out how one human can drink that much alcohol in such a short amount of time and still be functioning. Um, I just I I don't know what it is like specifically, but it just did not capture my attention. I was like, this is not a show for me. And that's fine. I also just think I don't care that much about Shay Mitchell, so that could be also the problem.
Right. That's fair. No, there is a similar thing in the fourth episode, I think, of they make her ride a horse. Like in Brazil, they make her ride a horse and like try to corral some animals, and she is just fully not about it. And she's freaked out by the horse. And like anyone who has ever spent any, like I'm from Kentucky, I've spent a fair bit of time around horses. Just I've never ridden a horse, but I know what horses are about. And if you're freaked out by a horse, the horse will also be freaked out. That's just the way that goes. But it is kind of funny to just watch, because I think she does have a good bit of personality, and like that's why like her being freaked out by a guinea pig is kind of funny.
I just was like, okay, I get it. You don't like guinea pigs. Like, go away. Like, I was not in the mood.
But I like the amount of curiosity in this, and I like the exploration that's being shown here with a good dash of humor. So if that's your thing, I would encourage you to check it out. Your point to how can this person drink this much alcohol? If they could not make a fifth episode, because I think she would actually die.
Like seriously, I was like, "Girl, you need to stop. Like you were drinking way too
much." There were points in the fourth episode where it seemed like she was on death's door.
And like this is interesting because she was like, I'm very adventurous with drinks, but not so much food. And I'm like, no, girl, you need to eat. Like, eat some stuff so this alcohol doesn't completely sit in your stomach. Like, come on. Do you not know how to drink? I don't drink, and even I know that. I'm glad to know that they couldn't have made a fifth episode, or she would have been
dead. Yeah, I think she would have actually died.
Good to know.
Like, there's one bit in the fourth episode where she goes out with this Brazilian woman, this Brazilian influencer. They just keep on giving her like different kinds of beers at this bar, and the next day, she just like they film her just like throwing up in her bathroom, and just being like, "I'm going to die. I do not feel well."
Nice.
And there's a kind of unspoken, when can I leave this country? Let's move on to our next show, Star Trek Discovery, season 5, episode 10, Life Itself. This I'm just gonna catch up here. This was the series finale.
Oh, I wanted to tell you, I did start to watch Discovery. I've watched like 2 episodes.
Okay.
So, season 1, episodes 1 and 2.
Okay. We're
very behind.
The first season is rough.
Anyway, series finale.
Series finale. Yeah. I'll say that I like it overall. I don't know that I'm crazy about all of the endpoints that it got to, especially in terms of like the overarching progenitors technology and like a lot of the stuff that was going on with like Maul and Locke. I don't think got to like a really satisfying place. But and Lost did this, so I am kind of a sucker for it. They have a really nice epilogue scene, like right at the very end, where it's just all of the characters in a room together, like hugging each other and like shaking each other's hand and laughing. That very much evokes like the last scene of Lost. Yeah, it's an easy scene, but it works just so well. And without it, I don't know how profoundly good it would work as a finale. Um, Also, the finale does a weird thing where it connects to one of the Star Trek shorts that put out a few years ago that is never before connected to Discovery and now is, and they put a lot of work into doing it. And it's kind of weird and also kind of delightful. But yeah, I mean, it's the finale feels very indicative of like what Discovery was, which was an occasionally bumpy but very enjoyable series. So I liked it for that. Again, Sonequa Martin Green is tremendous. Like I love her so much as the lead in this. So yeah, that's Star Trek Discovery. Let's continue on to Interview with the Vampire, season 2, episode 5. Don't be afraid, just start the tape. What a wild episode this was.
Oh my god, it was wild. I will say my favorite line goes to young Daniel when he says, "Are you the Zodiac killer?" No, sir, not quite.
No.
It is very interesting to me the more we learn, the more we realize that, like, I mean, obviously I knew going into this, like, don't trust Armand as far as you can throw him. But this episode like really nails that hammers that nail in that he cannot be trusted. He has clearly done something to both Louis and Daniel's memories of what actually happened at this event in San Francisco. Sir, you are beautiful and you are dramatic, but I do not trust you.
That last shot of Armand walking back into the penthouse with his big extra sunglasses.
He's being so extra. He's like, I'm gonna walk in and be like, as if I just went out for a stroll instead of, hunting and killing somebody. And be like, what's up, guys?
It's so dramatic.
But again, that's what I say. Like, he's such a dramatic character and he's very, very good looking. But it's like, sir, I don't trust that. You are way too pretty.
Yeah.
Not that vampires aren't supposed to be like, that's the whole point of vampires is like they're supposed to be somewhat gorgeous because that's how they they catch you off guard, whatever. That's how they compel you. But like he really is way too pretty to be trusted at all. I will say my heart did ache a bit for him when Louis is burned and he is voicing the words of Lestat. Like I did feel for him in that moment because he doesn't want to say what Lestat really wants him to say, which is tell him I still love him. You can tell he has feelings for Louis at this point. He really cares about Louis and he doesn't want to be that middle person between Louis and a potential other love interest, even though that love interest is long gone. The acting was phenomenal as well. It's like, Jesus Christ, it was such good acting. Yeah, what do you think about Louis, suicidal Louis?
It's difficult because it's hard to piece one timeline to another, and causation to effect. What I will say about that though is just the sheer visual of Louis burning in the sun is so dramatically different than any other way that you've seen in like media of a vampire burning.
Yes.
Like that the sun is like chipping away at like a soul. Like or like the wind like sweeping away dirt,
It kind of reminds me of those like types of creatures in like fantasy novels and things that suck souls and essences from humans. Like that's what it reminds me of. Like the sun is sucking a part of him away from his body. Like it's such a visceral imagery. And I wish we could understand the causation for him to go that far. But again, we can't really trust the narrative of what's going on in this room in San Francisco. But we also jumped from 1945 Paris to 1970s San Francisco without anything in between. So we don't really know what's going on. And I think that adds to the dramaticness of Louis' reaction, which also adds to the emotionality of it. Like, you're like, okay, something must really be going wrong in his head. And it makes you feel bad for him, but also, I need to know more. Please give me more.
Yeah, because we have a 30-year gap from like where we are now in the 40s to like what this is in the 70s. Yeah. So there's a question of like what has changed, what are the constants.
As always, the show just keeps us coming back for more because we're like, oh, okay, maybe we'll get an answer next time. Yeah. Because also, where is Claudia at this point? We know at some point she does go off on her own.
Right.
But we don't know why or how that happens. Very much intrigued to see if we learn more about that this season or if it'll be the next season.
I also want to say that the casting for young Daniel is so good.
Spot on.
Like
spot on.
Not often can I feel like I can really see like the line between younger and older characters, but it feels so clear. Like outside of like Yellow Jackets, I can't feel like I often be like, oh yeah, that's the same person.
Right.
But this just so clearly feels like the same person.
Yeah, like for example, like the last time I can think of that happening was Fall of the House of Usher, and like I didn't feel like the connection was clear enough between the older version of him and the younger version of him. Wild episode. And the tremendous. Visual effects department deserves an Emmy Award. Which that is something else that I've seen talked about on Twitter a lot lately, is that like AMC has not done their due diligence to really promote this show for it to gain recognition during award season, and it deserves to. Because even if it's just for visual effects or sound editing, like this show deserves it. Like the acting's great too. Like, absolutely. If anything, like at least submit it for that stuff.
Not my fault for not talking about the show enough. I've been podcasting about it since its very beginning.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next show. Evil, Season 4, Episode 4, How to Grieve.
I think it's How to Build a Coffin, but same difference. Doesn't matter.
Is it?
It doesn't matter. Either one doesn't matter. Same essence of vibe. But I will say the best thing about this episode, hands down, is Leland getting projectile vomited on multiple times.
Never has a character gotten what he so richly deserves.
Right? I'm just like, you deserve this horrible child. Like, you deserve all the poop and the vomit that you are getting right now.
I love Leland spending the first part of this episode just going, what do you mean I have to pay for the consequences of my own actions?
What do you mean I have to watch this baby that I wanted created? And it's like, sir, that you're a father. Go at it. Have fun.
Leland is such a sniveling little weasel.
The thing that really amazes me is that he didn't come up with the idea of, oh, I don't know, maybe I should use the voice of the actual birth mother of this child, the actual like biological mother of this child, that it might soothe the child. No, he's like, I'm just going to turn the music up loud and hope that I can drown out the child screaming.
You're not smart.
He's smart in some things, but not with child rearing. He has no idea.
So we had the main part of the episode with the man forgetting how to use words.
Oh, right, and then everyone else starts having aphasia. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, the creepy, disgusting thing eating out the side of Father, what's his name? I'm like, listen, this show has done a lot of things, but that one was probably the most disgusting I have ever seen. I was just like, oh my God, he has a big gaping hole in the side of his body. What the fuck is that? But also it was just really funny, especially when I'm reminding myself, when David goes into the confessional and he can't even give good confessional advice because he can't come up with the words. Like, it's one of those episodes that was disturbing but also hilarious at the same time. Like, it was just oddly disturbing, hilarious.
Yeah, and that's a balance that Evil often strikes really well.
Yes. Ben just trying to avoid the whole Jen situation even further. Like, he's just, that poor man, just he's losing his words, and he's got this goddamn voice in his head trying to convince him to do other things that he doesn't really want to do.
That bit reminded me of the reviews that our friend Janelle did for the first season of Evil. She made a lot of points that Ben and Kristen were the ship.
Yeah.
Which hasn't played out that way. But watching this episode, I was like, she might have been onto something.
I honestly, nothing against David. I would have loved to have seen Kristen and Ben, because Ben is so good to her kids. He's so like intertwined in her life that like it could easily turn into something. And I wish it could.
Yeah.
I wish it could. I mean, especially now that it seems like Andy's on his way out the door. Like,
right. And the show has always had that relationship with Andy of Andy can never stay in the picture for too long. No. He always has to be off to the side. The show always has to come up with a reason for why Andy cannot be here interacting with weird spooky shit.
Which at this point it's like, okay, what's the point of him even being alive? Like, they should have just killed off his character when he was off in Antarctica or wherever the fuck it was that he was at. You know, like, they should have just killed him off then, because he has no purpose. He serves no purpose. When he's there, he's kind of a foil for the daughters, but like not in a significant way that matters. So it's like, no. Why are you here? You're just taking up space and you're wasting our time.
Right, and I don't understand why they didn't just kill him. This feels like the perfect out.
But you know,
I did think it was weird that like Kristen didn't have a question of like, hey, it looked like you were doing drugs in our daughter's room.
Right. She just was like, okay, NBD. Like, what? Like,
other fish to fry. Like, that feels like the fish to fry.
That is your children. Right. You were so adamantly protective of last season, and now this season it's like they're not even significant in your life, and I don't understand that writing choice.
I did like the mention of like the effect that like COVID has had on all of us, though, which isn't even like necessarily connected to like long COVID effects, but just like, hey, yeah, we're all kind of stupider right now. Just like the effects of isolation and loneliness and having to be on fucking Zooms all the time, and the increase of like streaming and social media. Yeah, it's all made us a little bit stupid.
I also found it very interesting that like even with something as simple as the loss of words, they're still very much in line with David's like, there's got to be a spiritual reason for this. It's got to be demonic or something like that. And Kristen's very much like, I've been testing myself every day, for X number of years, and my scores have gone down. I'm clearly just not using my brain enough. I need to like work that muscle, like da da da. And then there's Ben that's like, yeah, there's a scientific reason for this. Like there's got to be some kind of illness that we've been contaminated with by being in the vicinity of this person that initially started losing their language. And so like I like that about this show, that continuously, no matter what kind of situation they're in, there's still those three distinct ways of dealing with it, and they don't deviate from that really at all.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing.
That being said, I do really like Ben just being like, look, we're gonna do the exorcism, so let's just do the exorcism.
he's like, fuck this shit, I'm bored. Like, let's just do what we know we're gonna do. Like, we always do the exorcism. And then they're arguing, we don't always do an exorcism. And he's like, yeah, we do. Like, it just humorous. So humorous.
Yeah, which again, like, shows like the very strong dynamic that they all have, where Ben's just like, I know how this is gonna go. David's gonna say we should do an exorcism. Kristen's gonna say we should do it as a placebo. Then we just do a fucking exorcism.
Right. And it very much is in the same vein of his hysterical comment of, since none of your beeswax last episode. So like he's very much becoming more of the comedic relief this season, and I really enjoy that.
The return of the weird Jesus girl.
Because why not?
Who, if I remember correctly, attempted to sacrifice him. Mm-hmm. Which was such a deeply weird episode.
It found it very interesting that he was getting in bed with her. I was like, do you not remember your history with this woman? Okay, great, cool.
So let's move on to our last show of the week. Doctor Who, Season 1, Episode 5, entitled Rogue. I watched this episode a few days late. Mm-hmm. A few days after it came out. And I did just so deeply enjoy watching this basically Bridgerton episode.
Yes.
As everyone else was freaking out about Bridgerton.
I really loved it, but also like the theater nerd in me who loves Jonathan Groff was just like, Jonathan Groff, you're playing this suave, debonair, Han Solo-esque character, abso-freaking-lutely, and you're in love with the Doctor. Yes. Here for it. Love it. Amazing. It was such a fun episode. I've seen it like 3 times already because I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, and like especially if we're thinking of this new season as like a reset of Doctor Who, mm-hmm. Doing just like Captain Jack Harkness,
yeah,
but with Jonathan Groff this time, and just like doing that same kind of dynamic, but make it so much gayer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good.
I haven't, like, a new episode was released today as we record, it was released this evening, but I saw some theories that Rogue might be the one who waits, and I'm like, that could be interesting. I'm not sure that's what's going to play out, but I was like, that would be interesting and make it even more, more likely that this character could come back. Because I just want them to come back and for him and the Doctor to make out again, because it was glorious.
Yeah.
And this makes me sound like I'm in it just to fetishize the gay characters, but no. I enjoyed it. It made my heart happy because so many people this season have complained about how queer coded the Doctor is. And I'm just like, oh honey, he's always been queer. They've always been queer. Like, it's just depending on who plays the Doctor as to how queer that comes out. And it's great to see him. Yeah, Rogue very much does a Jack Harkness where he like kisses the Doctor to steal the thing away from him and then push Ruby out of the way to sacrifice himself. Like, it's such a Jack Harkness move. And I do appreciate that reference.
Although I did... Okay, so that moment where he pushes Ruby, I did have like the same thought that I kind of have with like when Charlie died on Lost, where it's like, couldn't you have just like not done that? Like, could we not have just like, if it was possible to push Ruby out of the way, could we not have pulled Ruby out?
Well, the thing is that it had to be replaced with another body. So, like, whatever. So my thought process was, why didn't we do that with the other woman that came in and attacked the doctor? Why couldn't they have used her as a way to push Ruby out and replace Ruby's body weight with that woman in the locked space? Because that's what happens, is you have to replace the locked body with... It's totally like not logically sound, but in the world of Doctor Who, whatever happens can happen.
Whatever.
But like, they should have literally used the woman instead. You know what I mean? Because then we wouldn't have lost Rogue and Ruby would have been safe. But I also kind of understand why they did it with Rogue, because they want to make it seem like the Doctor's going to have to go find him. He's going to have to discover him again for this character to come back. Which is understandable. I don't personally like it, because I want to see all Jonathan Groff all the time, because I think he's a phenomenal actor, and he's very compelling and very, very good in this role. Like, he's very cheeky, and I really enjoy it. I will say I did not like the creaky neck thing with when they became the owl faces. I was just like, no, let's not do that neck thing. That's creepy. That sound is grating on my nerves. I get why they did it, because obviously they need to seem bird-like, but I was just like, nope, let's not do that again. But yes, very Bridgerton. And I love that her earrings had different modes that helped her. So like, she could click it to fight mode, and she could battle the crap out of this bird creature. And another mode helped her dance. And it was just like, this is great. We love Doctor Who technology.
I did like the moment of subversion, at least for me, and the moment where the girl attacks Ruby, where I'm like, because I think a part of me visualizes Ruby as and maybe this is just me seeing a sassy chaos blonde and going, that's a bisexual. After Sarah Lance and Clark Griffin just being like, that's a bisexual,
right?
But that moment where like, are they gonna kiss? And then it went into something different, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
It would have been really funny if they'd kissed, because everyone in the... not everyone in the Bridgerton fandom, but a lot of the Bridgerton people are very upset that a character has been queerified. And so like, it would have been just really funny to have this like counter culture thing that's pretending to be Bridgerton for the episode, having these two characters kiss. Like, that would have been funny as hell.
But also, I was like, why didn't I think of that? Because like, the whole conceit of this episode is that it's cosplay,
right?
And cosplayers love to play off of each other. I was like, why did I assume just because the dude was one of the bird people that the girl wouldn't also be? Because like that, like I said, that is top tier cosplayer shit.
Yeah. So good. But also, I love that Ruby was just like, oh, honey, you don't want that guy. He's such a dick. Like, she's literally like, girl, she's like giving her advice. And it's like, Ruby, in what world do you know sound romance advice? Like, you are living off of the vibes of romance stories from television and movies. Also teaching the girl the word okay. Like, I just was like, this is hilarious. The doctor says okay, and she goes, oh, I know that word. And like, for people like us, where okay has always been part of the vernacular, we're like, it's so weird that people don't know that word.
Also, I love Indira Varma in this episode. Just, I love it whenever she pops up. Again, another Torchwood actor also playing a Doctor Who character.
Listen, there's a lot of crossover.
That's it for this week. I don't believe we have anything big to talk about next week. So until then, Mads, where can we find you online?
On Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at DorothyNYC89. And on Tumblr, you can find me at MadsWorld15.
And you can find me on Twitter at DrewKoenig. Everywhere else at DrewKoenig, plus or minus an underscore. And you can also find me on Letterboxd and Serialized. You can find the podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Tumblr at TV Podcasts. And you can email us at notanottvpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, questions, or listener submissions you have. We also have started a Discord, and that'll be on our link tree, which will be on all of our social medias.
Come join us.
Yes, come join us. Have good conversations. Try to add a bunch of weird and interesting channels. Be sure to join there. You can find more episodes of our podcasts on Apple and Spotify, along with YouTube and whatever other podcasting device you use. And you can also find our entire backlog at libsyn.com/NotAnotherTV Podcast. And be sure to leave a review and subscribe and share us on all of your social media platforms. Until next week, please remember, don't go in the ocean. None of your business.